Bettor Sports Betting is your home for picks, props, and futures for tonight's action. Bettor Sports Betting wants to know what picks you're playing tonight. Tell us in the live chat on YouTube, Twitter, and the Bettor Sports Network app. This is Bettor Sports Betting with Fantasy Alarm's Dan Servodidio.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome in here to the Bettor Sports Betting Show on a Thursday afternoon. Got James Grande with me for today's show. We got Thursday Night Football, as always. Me and James on these Thursday shows going to give out some picks and props for tonight's game. Seahawks-Cowboys should be a fun one. I know James has some NBA bets and props that he wants to throw out there for tonight's slate. Bigger Thursday slate than normal, so that's nice. And then I'll give out some college football conference championship picks for Friday and Saturday's title games. So we'll get to all that. James, how are you doing, man? Good to have you back on a Thursday.
Happy Thursday, as always, Servo. Happy Thursday to Mr. Producer of the Day, Adam Bernard. I heard Adam wanted to take the day off, which doesn't surprise me, but I heard he was. But he heard that I was coming in, so he's like, I'll make an exception. So I appreciate that from Adam. He's a good guy. But happy Thursday. Happy Thursday to you both. Yeah, good slate of some sport ball tonight, Servo. So excited to get into it.
Yeah, should be good. If you have any of your own picks and bets and props that you want to throw at us in the chat here on YouTube, whether you're watching on Fantasy Alarm or Bettor Sports Network YouTube, definitely throw them in here because you guys hit on these props. You guys changed our minds on some of our picks. You guys hit on same game parlays, anytime touchdown scorers. We've had some good calls in the chat here over the football season. So definitely throw them in there. If you got Thursday Night Football, if you got any thoughts on tonight's NBA or this weekend's college football conference championships, definitely throw them in the chat here. All right, let's get to Thursday Night Football here. We got Seahawks-Cowboys. The spread is now up to Cowboys -9. It's gone up a little bit this week. So the Cowboys are favored at home by 9 now. 47.5 is the over-under. I don't have a pick on either the spread or total. I would probably lean the over. I will say, this is notable because, it's a Thursday night game. We've seen, these primetime unders, the Thursday Night Football unders keep cashing this season. But this is a little different because both these teams played on Thanksgiving a full week ago. So, they've had that full week of rest and prep. So this isn't like a normal Thursday night game. But I'd lean towards the over. I do think we get a lot of offense in this one. What about you? Before we give out some, props that we both have going, what do you think about this game?
I'd actually probably be on the other side of this. I don't think Seattle's offense is going to score that much. No Kenneth Walker. Dallas's pass defense has been pretty incredible this year, and their turnover margin has been we've seen Dallas almost hit this mark all by themselves, and they don't need a lot of help in specific games. But I would actually lean the under. I'm also not officially on the show making the pick, but I would lean the under on this game. Dallas points, Dallas spread. I would. This is I think that this is going to be I know people want a competitive game because, again, Thursday nights haven't been the best games. And, of course, last Thursday we lose Joe Burrow in one, the one good one that we were supposed to have. And so I'm going to go under and heavily favored all my bets towards Dallas. And that's going to be reflected here when we get into our
I do think Dallas should control this game. Obviously the spread is indicating that, and hopefully it isn't like a 2-score, 3-score lead for Dallas throughout. I hope the Seahawks can keep it close enough so we can watch. I'll be tuning into the Golden Bachelor tonight, James. So I gotta have another screen going with this game, and hopefully it stays interesting.
I heard there's some juicy spice going on with the Golden Bachelor. I heard he's not the most stand-up guy. So what I hear, the streets are talking about the golden bachelor here, Servo. That's just what I hear. I don't know.
Streets are talking, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting show. I'll say that. Don't have any strong opinions on the dude that's the Golden Bachelor, but all right. How about so props in this game then? I'll go first with one of mine. Jackson Smith-Njigba over 43.5 receiving yards. Look around at different sports books. I do know it's a little lower at some spots, so the best number you can get it at. But on BetMGM, it's 43.5. He's been starting to get more involved as the season's gone on. You know, he started a little slow at the beginning of the year, but he's picked it up now. He has at least 40 receiving yards in 4 straight games now, and 6 of the last 7. So he's been right in this range over the past couple months now. And his targets, involvement in the passing game have increased as the season's gone on. Over this yardage mark, 43.5 in 5 of the last 7 now, too. Dallas is a team that's really good, you know, secondary overall, really good pass defense, really good defensive line. But their slot corner, Jordan Lewis, has been kind of a below-average coverage guy in that slot, and they've allowed some better games to slot receivers, which is where Smith-Njigba plays. So I think that's a spot where, especially if, you know, we both think the Seahawks should be trailing in this game. That's what the kind of the game flow should be and what the spread's telling us. And I think they're just going to be having to pass more anyway. And I could see it being more, you know, shorter completions to Smith-Njigba from Geno Smith, which I think if he can rack up enough, you know, receptions there, even if they're shorter, I think he goes over this yardage prop. So, yeah, give me the over on Smith-Njigba's receiving yards.
Yeah, I think that is the interesting point about the slot. That is the one weak point that Dallas secondary has, because I was looking into it as well. And it's interesting to see, like, they do move Lockett into the slot a bunch, but it is mostly been JSN there. So I agree. I mean, this is the one spot I think you can feel pretty comfortable with if he's going to line up majority of the time in the slot. I'll bring out my first pick, and unfortunately, like, I hate to do this because in my Twitter bio, I have the famous Geno Smith, "They wrote me off, but I ain't right back," though, in my bio. Like, I love that. Was such a good quote last year. And, like, you know, he had such a Cinderella season, but it's been pretty underwhelming this year. Yeah. And now he has to face Dallas, who doesn't allow really anything. I mean, the 31st fewest yards in football, or second fewest yards in football to the quarterback position through the air this year. Just a tick over 2,000 yards in 11 games is pretty insane. They've only allowed 2 passers to go over 229.5 passing yards this year. So, I mean, you know, 14 to 12 touchdown to interception ratio. They're just, you know, and then the Deron Bland thing, but take out the Deron Bland 5 pick sixes and they still have 7 picks out like elsewhere. This is just a defense that just doesn't allow passing yards through the air. So I am writing Geno Smith off tonight. And I hope he doesn't write back, because that would be unfortunate for my bank account and those that are also placing this bet.
Yeah. Listen, I'm with you, because even though I do have the Smith-Njigba over receiving yards, I do think Geno is going to struggle a little bit here in terms of his overall game. And a pick I have right on that line is Geno Smith interceptions here, over a half interception. So I think he's throwing a pick minus 155 on BetMGM. You mentioned it. You know, he started off strong. You know, he started off well at the beginning of the year, but he's really tailed off. And the Seahawks offense in general has tailed off because of his struggles. He's had some interception issues. He's thrown 8 picks this year, but 7 of them have come in the last 7 games alone. So it's been recent where he's actually had these turnover issues. And you said the thing with the Cowboys defense, they force these turnovers in the secondary. 12 interceptions in 11 games this year for the Cowboys, and they've had a pick in 9 of 11 games this year. So And one of the times they didn't was against the Eagles and Jalen Hurts. But other times when they're facing some of these below average or average quarterbacks, that they're getting a pick. So yeah, give me the Geno Smith anytime interception prop basically here on BetMGM.
It's almost surprising that they didn't pick off Hurts, considering how weird the Jalen Hurts interception total has been this year.
I know,
like,
yeah.
He threw 5. He threw 5 last year, and he has thrown like almost triple that or this year. It's crazy. And that's the game that Dallas doesn't.
He doesn't have 15 already, does he? That'd be.
No, I don't think he has. No, that was more like dramatic. That was for dramatic effect.
He's on pace maybe for.
Let's see. We'll just pull out. He has 10, so he has half.
So he's on pace to triple that. Yeah.
Yeah. See, I wasn't wrong.
You weren't wrong.
There was context. There was context needed. That's for sure. I'm going to stick with the Seahawks unders here. I'm going Geno Smith under, Tyler Lockett under 48.5 yards, -120 over on BetMGM. We've talked about it a couple times. Don't like the pass against Dallas. You highlighted it perfectly, where the slot is where you do see some success. And again, we might see Lockett line up in the slot. We might see Metcalf line up in the slot. Like, they can move their receivers. They have very versatile receivers that do play outside and inside at times. But their top 2 corners in Deron Bland and Stephon Gilmore are both top 20 according to PFF this year. It's tough sledding. They have an elite safeties in the back too, that anything that Tyler Lockett may go over the top with might get shut down immediately. I also looked at his under 4.5 receptions. Tyler Lockett hasn't had a bad year, but 575 yards through 11 games is not. It's definitely, he's 31. We're on the down. I think we're just on the downswing of what it's been, and he has only gone over this mark 5 times in the 11 games. So give me the under Tyler Lockett, 48.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I do think him and Metcalf could be under their props tonight. And as I mentioned, I think if any receiver does have success, I think it's going to be Smith and Jigba, especially if he's more playing in the slot. And we have Lockett on the outside and Metcalf, probably being limited tonight. I'm with you on there. I'm going to the other side here. Let's go to the Cowboys. Give me Brandon Cooks over 41.5 receiving yards, -120 on BetMGM. He's a guy that's, similar to Smith and Jigba, but even more so. He started off slow, but he's been a lot more involved in this passing offense lately. Pretty much, the second, reliable target behind CeeDee Lamb now, and he's actually outgained Lamb in 3 straight games now. But this yardage prop is, it's started to go up as he's been posting some better totals, but he's still been over this in 4 of the last 5 games, including 72 last week, 173 3 games ago. And, he's one of the deeper threats in the Cowboys offense. Lamb is the, underneath guy that, they use Ferguson a lot. But it downfield and deep balls, it's a lot of Brandon Cooks. He's had at least a 20-plus yard reception in 4 of the last 5 games. So I think he can get, at least one, deeper reception tonight to help this go over. But either way, he's still been one of the top targets outside of Lamb in this passing game. So, yeah, give me the over on Brandon Cooks here.
I love seeing Brandon Cooks score because then he shoots the arrow.
I know that the NFL, no fun league,
Yeah, no fun. Yeah, no fun league. That's for sure. I will also be going to Dallas. Tony Pollard, an anytime touchdown. He is the perennial favorite. He has the best odds, -145 on BetMGM to score a touchdown. And we saw him get away from the touchdown scoring for quite a while.
Yeah.
Actually, he hadn't scored until the Carolina game 2 weeks ago. He hadn't scored since week 1, twice against the Giants. But you've seen the touchdowns now in back-to-back games. And what you worry about when you're talking about Seattle's defense is the rushing, just rushing touchdowns in general. Only the Carolina Panthers have allowed more rushing touchdowns this year. 16 to Carolina, 11, or Seattle's allowed 12 rushing touchdowns. That's over 1 per game on the year. So I look at this as Pollard is back being super involved. I mean, he's been, it's good to see him super involved in the passing game as well over the last 2 games, because they kind of went away from that. He had 4 catches in the 3 weeks leading up to the Carolina game, and then you get 4 receptions in Carolina, 6 receptions on Thanksgiving. I mean, just more opportunity for Tony Pollard, who has 16 plus touches in back-to-back games now, because they are involving him in the pass game. So I think Tony Pollard does get into the end zone here. I do think Servo maybe I'm not like saying go out and maybe a sneaky touchdown here is Rico Dowdle plus 260 too. I think, it's not like, I shouldn't say it's that sneaky. He has pretty good odds. Plus 260 is one of the, it's like in the top whatever of in this BetMGM right now. But they have sprinkled him in quite a bit lately. He scored on Thanksgiving. And if this game does turn into kind of like any type of route, I mean, we could be talking about a Rico Dowdle touchdown who scored in 2 of the last 3 weeks. So maybe sprinkle a little bit sprinkle something on there, some plus money and on some Dowdle touchdown. Just given, like, we saw Pollard get stuffed 3 times at the goal line not too long ago, and then finally breaks through 2 games in a row with touchdown. Maybe a different goal line option.
I mean, I'm all for that. I think it was a few games ago where I had Pollard's anytime touchdown, I think against the Giants, and he got tackled like right at the 1-inch line. And then the next play, I think they brought in Dowdle and he scored the touchdown. So, but on your point with Pollard, he's had some, he's been due for some positive regression with his touchdowns because he went through that long stretch this year where he hadn't scored, and now we're starting to see it. So, there's a reason he is the betting favorite to score tonight of anybody for anytime touchdowns. But Dowdle too. I mean, he's the bigger back than Pollard, and if they are down to the goal line, and Pollard doesn't get in a couple times, or they throw it and can't get in, they could look to give it to Dowdle because he can push in. So I don't mind that one at all. I love that. All right, so that's Thursday Night Football. Over on Fantasy Alarm, as always, we got the DFS Showdown playbook up for tonight's games. We have a sleeper picks article with some different props that we didn't even touch on here from Britt Flynn, I think is up there. So you can check out all these, and also the DFS lineup generator, all the good stuff we have at Fantasy Alarm. If you haven't already, go get the Fantasy Alarm All Pro subscription. You could scan that QR code right on the screen there, but you get access to our Discord, any DFS or season long stuff for fantasy and every sport, NBA DFS tonight, NHL DFS, college basketball. Me and Pete Cole are killing it with college basketball DFS in the Discord. So get access to all this. All right, let's talk some college football. We got conference championship weekend here. Tomorrow there's 2 games, and then Saturday we got a whole day of title games, and we got another week of the BettorEdge contest coming here. So if you think college football, you can join this Servo 7 competition that we've been doing all season long. College football totals competition. I think this is one of the last weeks to do it. We might have some for the bowl games, but this is one of the final weekends to really get into this Servo 7 and win some real money here. Free competition to join, but you can get paid out if you just make the most correct picks. It's just 7 picks that you make on over-under totals, and there's it's a smaller slate of games to pick from, so not as many games to really dive into this weekend, but that just kind of makes it easier to pinpointing which totals to get. So use promo code BETTOR, BETTOR at bettoredge.com/better. You get $20 when you sign up and verify, no deposit required. My BettorEdge pick for this contest that I'll throw out here, the SEC championship, I'm taking the over in this one. Over 55.5 is the total for this on BettorEdge. I think it's at 54.5 at some sports books. It's been fluctuating a little bit, but either way, I think this is going to be a higher scoring game. These SEC championship games have historically been higher scoring. They get on they're playing in the Atlanta Falcons Dome Stadium, and when they get on this turf in the Dome, it ends up being like a track meet. Since 2005, SEC title games, 13-4-1 to the over. As good as these defenses are for Alabama and Georgia, and as good as the defenses usually are in the SEC, these games, the SEC championship games, just end up being higher scoring than you might think. And I think it translates right into this matchup because Alabama, their defense is pretty good, but they've also struggled against the two best passing offenses that they faced this year. Texas and LSU both had success, put up points. Quinn Ewers and Jaden Daniels in those matchups. And Carson Beck and Georgia is a very good passing offense. This is not like we saw last year with Stetson Bennett, where they leaned on the run a lot, had some explosive plays with Bennett, but still it was more of a run-focused team and offense. But this year they're leaning on Beck to be the main guy, and they're throwing downfield a lot more than they have been in recent years. Beck is, he's going to be a top NFL QB prospect in the draft. He's that good. And I think he can exploit some of Alabama's issues against the pass. So I think Georgia sets the tone off on offense, but Alabama, don't sleep on their offense either. Jalen Milroe, really one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. And Alabama has had success with kind of leaning on him with the run game with his legs, but then he's got a really good arm where they can hit some deep balls, hit some big plays downfield, open up the playbook against defenses that aren't, maybe getting lulled to sleep a little with the run, but then hit a big play or two. And I think Georgia, as good as they are defensively, their secondary is very good, but they've had a little bit of issues with some running quarterbacks this year. So I think it could be, just leading to the over for Alabama to keep pace with Georgia in this one. So, going the over here. I'm gonna root for another higher scoring SEC game because it's just how it tends to be. And a couple other interesting trends I noticed. Alabama and Georgia, when they've matched up over the last 9 matchups, going back a number of years now, 6-2-1 to the over are their games. They always play in these higher scoring games, and it's they're in different divisions in the SEC, so it's usually coming in either the SEC championship game or it's been the college football playoff that they've matched up. So they always get into these track meets where it's both teams are looking to post a big number to make the other guy match them. So that's a trend. Alabama games, by the way, have hit the over in 5 straight games and 7 of the past 9 too. So they're another team, as I mentioned, their defense can be a little shaky at times, but their offense is, just don't sleep on them. And these sports books keep putting the totals a little bit lower than they should. So, give me the over in this one.
How did Alabama or how did Auburn in prevent defense let Alabama receivers get behind them, Servo?
Unreal. I mean, so what they did, if you've probably seen the highlight of it or maybe the breakdown. So what they did on that play, it was the last play of the game, right? And it was Alabama having to score a touchdown, and Auburn put a spy linebacker who didn't rush the passer. He was just chilling around the line of scrimmage, waiting for Milroe to run because he is a threat with his legs, but he's not going to run. He had to run like 30 or 40 yards to get a touchdown. He's not doing that in that moment because time would expire. He's not going to reach it. So the spy defender was basically a useless defender. Like, why not, either have him rush the passer or have another guy deep. And what they did was they did like double coverage in the middle of the end zone, but on the edges, they had man-to-man, one-on-one coverage, and that's what Milroe threw it to the corner of the end zone. And I mean, the guy who caught it, Isaiah Bond, is, he's one of those like elite wide receiver recruits that they have in Alabama that he made a play. I mean, so bad by Auburn. So Alabama did survive that, but should be fun here.
Well, is Alabama going to survive the SEC championship game, Servo? Is Alabama going to take down the 2-time defending champions in college football in the SEC championship game?
All right, so I wasn't going to make a pick on this game against the spread or specifically besides the total, but I'm taking a shot on Alabama money line here, plus 180 on BetMGM. I honestly, I do think Georgia should win this game. They're the rightful favorites. The spread is kind of indicating that it's like more than a field goal too. But I think there's a worthy shot to take Alabama to win out right here. Looking back, check this out for a couple of interesting trends. And if you follow the SEC, you probably know this stuff. If you follow Alabama, you definitely know it. Alabama against Georgia in the SEC title games since Nick Saban took over in 2007. They're 3-0 against Georgia straight up when they match up in the conference title game. It happened 2 years ago when Georgia and Alabama faced and Alabama won it. Alabama 2 is 8-1. They've been in the SEC title game 9 times since Nick Saban took over. 9 times they've been in this SEC championship game. They're 8-1 straight up. So when they get there, they win. Their athletes, their team comes to play. The only loss was back in 2008 when they played Tim Tebow's Florida team. All right. Since then, they've won 8 straight SEC title games that they've been in. So when they get in this spot, and as I mentioned, 3 of them have been against Georgia. And the most recent one was when Georgia was the number 1 team and Alabama won. So, I look at this and so the last time Georgia and Alabama did face was in the national championship game 2 years ago, which Georgia won. But before that, Alabama had beaten Georgia in 7 straight meetings that they had against each other, including 3 outright as underdogs. So I look at the spot and, Georgia is the better team. They're the more complete team. They should win this game. But all the history kind of points me right to Alabama that I think they're worthy of taking a shot on their money line to win here.
Okay. I mean, betting against Nick Saban is not something we're doing here, Servo.
By the way, when he's been an underdog at Alabama, it is like a very rare occurrence. And I think this is only the 4th time ever that he's been an underdog. And I think he's like 2-1 against the spread or something. So, whatever that. We got Blurpy in the YouTube chat here asking, what is your take if we have 3 undefeated teams in the college football playoff and Texas and Bama wins? Who gets in?
Chaos.
It will be chaos. I think if Alabama wins, I think they're in.
So you're not including – so Georgia's just the 2-time defending champs just gone.
So the 3 undefeated teams, the one would be Michigan, which they're in.
Yep.
The other one would be Washington. I think they would have to be in. And then the other one would be Florida State. It's hard to – you can't – if there's an undefeated conference champ, it's just never been done where they've been left out. I don't think it has happened. So, and Blurpy's saying, Texas beat Alabama head-to-head. I realize that. I don't know. I think if – the Bama win against Georgia will look like the best win of the season, even though Texas did beat Alabama. We'll see how that shakes out. There's a chance if Florida State barely beats Louisville and it's like a low-scoring game, I think there's a small chance that they get left out because it's like the committee saying, like they're not one of the best teams in our ratings, and you get Texas and Alabama moving up. I don't know.
They lost their quarterback. They lost their quarterback too, right? Florida State. Wasn't he their best player?
Yeah, Jordan Travis out for the year, yeah. Blurpy, by the way, that is the chaos situation.
This is great. I hope this happens.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. I am all for it, honestly. And I could see, like, there's Ohio State, by the way, is, they lost last week against Michigan and they're not playing in a conference championship. There's a couple of scenarios where Ohio State could sneak into the top 4 if like multiple teams are losing. Florida State loses. We get
Iowa winning the
Iowa could win. I don't think that's gonna happen. But like if Texas loses, if Washington beats Oregon, like that, all this stuff could happen. So Blurpy saying I think FSU isn't a top 4 team, but if they go undefeated, they deserve to be in. I tend to agree. It's just gonna be very interesting how they view Texas and Alabama if Alabama does pull it off. And especially if Alabama, I don't think this is going to happen. I just said Alabama could win, but if Alabama does win by, multiple scores and it's like a domination, they're in for sure because they will have dominated the number one team. But we'll see. It's going to be craziness. All right, another game here. Because one of the situations would be, what happens with Oregon-Washington. Oregon minus 9.5 point favorites here in this Pac-12 championship game. Give me Oregon. I think they're winning comfortably in this. I know it's probably disrespect to Washington, the spread, but Oregon is the more complete team. They have been since we had this matchup, Oregon-Washington back in week 7. Oregon should have won that game. They missed
in Washington, right?
It was in Washington. They barely lost. Oregon should have won it though. They missed on like multiple fourth down conversions, especially late in the game. If they get a couple of those, we're talking about Oregon winning outright in that game. It was a close loss either way. But since that game, we've seen Washington barely survive games. They're undefeated, but they easily could have one or two more losses on their record now, and they've kind of squeaked by here. Since that loss, they've won 5 straight games by 10 points or less in this last stretch here. Oregon, by the way, has beaten every opponent by double digits since that loss. So they've gone out and just taken care of business. And also, there's been some common opponents there that Washington struggled a little bit with, but Oregon just went out and won handedly. I just think Oregon's the more better overall team right now. Michael Penix Jr. has hit a slump here. He started out the season very hot, but he's really, his completion rate, his yards per attempt, his passing yards per game have really taken a downhill turn over the past month. And there's some rumors out there that maybe he's playing a little hurt, and that might have part to do with it. But this is a spot where I think Oregon is going to really make a statement that they are the best team here in the Pac-12, and they should have won earlier, and I think they're going to win by double digits here. The other factor that you just have to consider here is Bo Nix is playing for the Heisman. This is basically the Heisman game. If Washington wins, Penix is the Heisman. If Oregon wins, it's Bo Nix. But there's some argument that Bo Nix needs to, have like a Heisman moment. He needs to really put up a big game here, which I think if they're winning by like 10 points, they're covering the spread, I still think they're going to be trying to score late, because there's also the whole scenario with the college football playoff that if a lot of these undefeated teams win, Oregon has to has to put up a big number and really show like we just dominated the undefeated number 3 team in the country. We don't want to get left out here. So I think there's going to be motivation, even if they're winning by, double digits late, to just keep going, keep scoring for Bo Nix and for their playoff chances. So, give me Oregon in this spot here. I think they're going to prove that they are the more complete team on both sides of the wall.
We got a little Maction going here, Servo, and I think Maction is usually like Tuesdays is the Maction
day,
we
get Tuesdays, Wednesdays that are usually Maction.
Do we got some Maction week, some weekend Maction here? Miami of Ohio taking on Toledo. Who do you got in the MAC championship?
Yeah, MAC title game here. I go in the underdog here, Miami of Ohio. We saw these teams play back in October, and Toledo won 21-17. Close game. But in that game, Miami's quarterback, Brett Gabbert, got hurt.
Shout out Blaine Gabbert.
Shout out Blaine Gabbert, his brother. He got hurt for the rest of the year. He's been out. But since then, they've actually gone 4-0 straight up, and they've gone 3-1 against the spread since he got hurt with their backup Avion Smith in there. They've been still fine. Smith is a downgrade from Gabbert, but I like how Miami didn't fall apart from that. Have still been playing well since their quarterback got hurt. And I think this spread just a little too big. The 7.5, I love getting it at 7.5 too, because you get it under a touchdown. check this out for MAC title games since 2005. The underdogs have been covering at a crazy rate. 12-5-1 against the spread. Our underdogs in the MAC title game since 2005, 70% cover rate. And it's the best underdog cover rate in conference title games in this stretch too. This is just kind of one of those things that happens more often than not in these MAC games where the underdog comes to play. I also like, this total's low at 44.5. Getting, the underdog in a low total game like this is just kind of one of those principles that I look to target sometimes. But Miami too this year, 9-3 against the spread. Toledo's just 5-7 against the spread. I think they're going to push Toledo here, make them earn it. Toledo could win this outright in the MAC title game, but I think Miami's live here to make it close.
I only recognize one Miami Servo, and it's the one in Ohio. The one that little brother that definitely lost to big brother this year. Finally, we have the Mountain West Championship, and hopefully they do play on the blue turf. I doubt it because Boise State's here, but I don't know why. That's a missed opportunity if you don't. Boise State taking on UNLV. What do we got here?
No, so this game is in the Raiders Stadium in Vegas.
It's a miss. I mean, that's just a miss. Like, I'm sorry. I know that would be home field advantage for Boise State, but like nobody's staying up to watch the Mountain West anyway. Like, at least, give the appeal that you want, like, people to watch. Like, oh, wow, they have a blue field. Like, that's what they're doing in the in-season tournament. They're making these courts look cool. So kids are like, wow, I'd love to play on that when I'm older. Why don't you do, sorry, I didn't mean to go on a tangent, but like missed opportunity, just saying. That's
funny. I mean, listen, they're going to be Boise State Stadium usually hosts a bowl game every year. So we should have a bowl game on the blue turf at some point.
Okay. I respect that.
Well, this game, you don't have to stay up late for it. This is like an afternoon game. So you're good.
Great news.
You're good. This is at the Raiders Stadium, turf field, indoor game. And that is actually, you talk about the stadium, the fact that it is indoors on this turf is actually pointing me to the over here. Historically, we've had a higher percentage of games go over when it's the conference title game in an indoor stadium, especially for when you have teams involved that play outdoors all season long, which is usually the case in college. But I think it's especially true for these Mountain West teams where it's usually bad weather outside in a lot of instances, but they're going indoors here, and the turf field, the fast track just leads to overs. I think it's about I had the stat here. It's about like 60% to the over since over the past 10 or 15 years that these indoor conference games have hit the over. But overall, just when we're talking about this matchup, Boise State and UNLV, both their teams' strength is offense. Boise State leans on their stud running back Ashton Genty, but they also have their other really good running back, George Holani, now back, and he's been rolling lately. They have a really good 1-2 punch in the run game, and UNLV's rush defense has struggled against the run in recent games. They have a ton of yards in their past few matchups against like San Jose State, Air Force, both ran it up on them on the ground, and I think Boise State's going to have a lot of success on the ground because of Genty and Holani being their 1-2 punch there. Also a dual threat quarterback in Taylor Green too. So I worry about UNLV's defense in this spot. But on the other side, Boise State's defense isn't that great either. And UNLV likes to lean on the run too, which is one of the areas where Boise State has struggled against the run. So I think this is, even though we could see a lot of running on both sides in this game, UNLV too has a really good quarterback in Jaden Mava, who's he's one of those guys that is better than you think, and when you watch him, you realize that. But I think both these teams are just going to be a higher scoring game. It's 58.5. It's a high total, but I do think this is going to be both teams probably scoring 30 points each, and maybe it's like the winner, first one to 40 or something wins this. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. So
first one to 40. Oh, good old college football for you there.
That's just how it goes sometimes in these conference games. It's like defense becomes optional, and it's crazy. So it'll be a fun one. This will be a fun one. We got tight spread, Boise State, slight favorites, but rooting for overs in this one. So yeah, those are some college football bets for this weekend. Should be an awesome slate. Friday, as I mentioned, you got the 2 games. That's Oregon, Washington on Friday night. And then Saturday, we got all those games highlighted by Georgia, Alabama. All right, how about some NBA picks for tonight's slate? Usually these Thursday, we only get like 2 or 3 games with the TNT games, but that's not the case tonight. We got a lot of games to pick from for you. So where are you going with one of your bets here?
Yeah, I think that's because we got the in-season tournament,
smaller
slates next week. We have 2 big slates because they're giving teams like all these extra games. So I think there's a few teams playing like extra games this year. So they're just front loading this week and in-season tournament playoffs next week. So I got 3 picks tonight. My first one, Pacers Heat over 238.5. It's even money on BetMGM. Indiana Pacers overs this year, Servo. They have played 16 games. The over in Indiana Pacers games are 14-2.
Whoa.
They are the fastest team in the league in terms of pace of play. They are also 29th in defense. So it is a rare pairing of really fast, ton of possessions, also can't defend anybody. There is just a ton of points scored in every game. We saw the last week or 2 weeks ago, the rare 250 total in that Atlanta-Indiana game that ended up being hitting at the 9-minute mark of the fourth quarter.
Yeah,
and then
I remember that one.
309 points in regulation was the final tally there. So I am going to bet overs in Indiana games. I don't care about like Miami. Miami's actually playing faster than they have in years past. Like this has been a team historically like dead last in pace. Now they're not like much better, but they are a worse defensive unit this year. They just allowed 130 points to the Bucks last game, in a game that they scored 127 points themselves. So Miami's offense looks good. Their defense not as strong. I am all in on the over Pacers Heat tonight. Another game environment that I love is Hawks Spurs. So I'm going to go DeAndre Hunter over 16.5 points for the Atlanta Hawks. He has hit this mark in 4 straight games. And the caveat to the Hunter points is twofold. One, Jalen Johnson, their starting power forward, is out. And we've seen Hunter since the injury in the Washington game. He played 40 minutes in Boston. He played only 26 minutes in Cleveland. That's because it was a blowout. But 20, 24, 18 points. He's taken 12, 14, 11 shots in each of those games. He's a guy who has consistently taken less than double-digit shot attempts, and that's direct correlation to Jalen Johnson. And then you factor in the Spurs. Yes, Victor Wembanyama may or may not play in this game, which obviously the may not would be better for the DeAndre Hunter points and everyone involved. But even with Victor's, he had 10 blocks and steals in 24 minutes last game. 10 blocks and steals in 24 minutes. It's just not like a real life stat. They got torched, and they're 27th in defense this year. Also, while playing extremely fast, this is a matchup between the 3rd and 4th pace teams in the league. So more offense. This total has been bet up to nearly 250 tonight. So there's going to be a ton of points scored. I like DeAndre Hunter, even money to go over 16.5 points. Just as long as Jalen Johnson's out, I feel really good about this number. And then finally, shout out my boy Georges Niang over there in Cleveland. This has been someone that very Fantasy Alarms, John and Pemba has loved using in DFS, but he's been playing a very prominent role off the Cleveland bench this year, and he's now kind of just been disrespected. And I know like the number is not the most sexy number, minus 165 on BetMGM to hit the over in 3-point attempts. But he's now made 2 or more threes in 6 straight and an 8 of 9 overall. And, like Portland does get a bad rep I would say, for being a terrible team. And they're not a very good team. I'm not saying it, but they struggle defensively. I mean, they're about league average, but league average is league average. They allow a lot of threes per game as well, according to NBA.com. So I think Georges Niang in his 20 minutes per game, all he does is get out there and shoot threes. He is shooting 41% over his last 5 games, which is an uptick from where it was in the beginning of the year, where, like he was brought into this Cleveland team to space the floor. And when you have Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland firing on all cylinders, driving and kicking to open shooters like Max Strus, like Georges Niang, it's fruitful for everybody involved. The 3-point attempts are there for Niang. The 3-point makes are there for Niang. Give me over 1.5 tonight, minus 165 on BetMGM. All
right, love it. Some props and a game total over. The Pacers bet. I mean, they're. I remember you gave out the over on that one that was like the highest total.
250. Had not seen it in. Yeah, was that on this? Did we give that out?
We gave that out on the show. Yeah.
Yeah, never been more confident in a 255 total. Dude, 9 minutes in the fourth quarter. Check that one off.
That's crazy.
255, and it went 309 in regulation. So it was, I think, 150. I want to say like 150, 156, 153. Like we're a 3-point away from overtime. Like what could we have really done in that game? Like if would it look like an NBA All-Star game if a 3 falls there for Atlanta?
Yeah, the way they play with Halliburton is just
crazy.
They're going quick.
Crazy.
They're going fast there.
It's crazy.
All right, so there's some NBA picks. Some more NBA DFS is coming with James Grande, John and Pemba right after us here on Bettor Sports Network and Fantasy Alarm, 5 p.m. Eastern. We got the NBA DFS live show with John and James, so stay tuned for that one. And then tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern on Fantasy Alarm YouTube, we got the Thursday game day preview with Impemba and Andrew Cooper. So you can get all your fantasy questions that you have. I saw some in the chat here on the show, but if you have any fantasy start sits or DFS for tonight's game, definitely listen and watch that show and ask away your questions there. And then 7 p.m. Eastern on Bettor Sports Network is the high stakes fantasy football show with Eric Balkman. So same thing. Start sit questions or anything with for Thursday Night Football or this weekend. And then tonight for the BettorCast, we have Seahawks-Cowboys, 8:15 p.m. Eastern. So, check out that. You can win some awesome stuff with the BettorCast tonight for Thursday Night Football. All right, that's about it for us. We'll be back tomorrow here on Bettor Sports Betting. Appreciate everyone tuning in here and chiming in on the chat as you guys did. Tomorrow, me and Howard Bender are giving out some NFL Week 13 best bets for Sunday's game. So stay tuned for that, and we'll see you guys later.
Bettor Sports Betting on the Bettor Sports Network.